With the conventions over and just 99 days left, the general election campaign is officially on. Hillary Clinton and her running mate Tim Kaine are on a bus tour through the Rust Belt, and we caught up with them yesterday in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Amid reports Russia has hacked into Democratic Party files, even a program they shared with the Clinton team. We sat down with Clinton for the first time in this campaign, and that's where we started. Secretary Clinton, welcome back to Fox News Sunday, and congratulations.
Thank you so much, Chris, and it really is good to be here.
Do you believe that Russia is behind the hacking and release of the DNC emails? And do you think that Vladimir Putin wants to defeat you, or see you defeated, and Donald Trump elected president?
Well, Chris, here's what I think we know. We know that Russian intelligence services, which are part of the Russian government, which is under the firm control of Vladimir Putin, hacked into the DNC, and we know that they arranged for a lot of those emails to be released. And we know that Donald Trump has shown a very troubling willingness to back up Putin, to support Putin, whether it's saying that NATO wouldn't come to the rescue of our allies if they were invaded, talking about removing sanctions from Russian officials after they were imposed by the United States and Europe together because of Russia's aggressiveness in Crimea and Ukraine, his praise for Putin, which is, I think, quite remarkable.
So are you suggesting that Putin would rather see him as president than you?
Well, I'm not going to jump to that conclusion, but I think laying out the facts raises serious issues about Russian interference in our elections, in our democracy. We would not tolerate that from any other country, particularly one with whom we have adversarial positions. And for Trump to both encourage that and to praise Putin, despite what appears to be a deliberate effort to try to affect the election, I think raises national security issues.
Trump, after the backlash about his comments.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press.
Trump said he was just being sarcastic.
Well, I think if you take his encouragement that the Russians hack into American email accounts, if you take his quite excessive praise for Putin, his absolute allegiance to a lot of Russian wish list foreign policy positions, his effort then to try to distance himself from that backlash, which rightly came not just from Democrats, but Republicans, independents, national security and intelligence experts, leads us once again to conclude he is not temperamentally fit to be president and commander-in-chief.
You carved up Trump pretty good in your acceptance speech.
Donald Trump says he wants to make America great again. Well, he could start by actually making things in America again. A man you can bait with a tweet is not a man we can trust with nuclear weapons.
Here is a guy you say is unfit to be president. Why is this election still so close?
Too many Americans feel, Chris, like they've been left out and left behind by our economy, by our government. I understand that frustration and frankly, even that fear that some people feel that, you know, it's just not working for them, and they are looking for answers. I think the kind of inflammatory answers that Trump has provided, blame somebody, blame immigrants, blame Muslims, blame women, blame somebody, is attractive in the first instance to people who are looking for answers. But what I'm counting on, what I believe, he has offered nothing to help people. I believe we have put together an agenda to increase jobs, increase incomes, make our economy grow and be more fair, which is going to appeal to a majority of Americans.
Good, because I want to talk not about Trump, but about you and drill down into some of the positions that you've taken in this campaign. At a fundraiser last year, you said this: the Supreme Court is wrong on the Second Amendment. Now, in the 2008 Heller case, the court said that there is a constitutional individual right to bear arms. What's wrong with that?
Well, I think what the court said about there being an individual right is in line with constitutional thinking. And I said in the convention, I'm not looking to repeal the Second Amendment. I'm not looking to take people's guns away. But I am looking for more support for the reasonable efforts that need to be undertaken to keep guns out of the wrong hands.
And the Second Amendment includes an individual right to bear arms.
Yes, but that right, like every other of our rights, our First Amendment rights, every right that we have is open to and even subject to reasonable regulations.
I just want to pursue this a little bit because Heller, Justice Scalia, he said that the right to bear arms is reasonably limited. He left the door open to regulation. If you're elected president, you're going to appoint the Ninth Supreme Court Justice. Are you saying you do not want to see the Heller decision, the individual right to bear arms, overturned?
No, I don't. But here's what I do want, and I want to be very clear about this. I want the Congress to step up and do its job. I want to get out of the horrible cycle we're in, where we go and mourn dozens, hundreds, thousands of people killed by gun violence. Everybody says, oh, let's pray, let's, send our hearts and our feelings, and then nothing happens. We're better than this. The gun lobby intimidates elected officials. The vast majority of Americans, including gun owners, support the kind of common sense reforms that I'm proposing.
On immigration, you say that you would go even further than President Obama in deferring the deportation of people in this country illegally, and you say if Congress doesn't act, that you would support even tougher executive action. I want to ask you about separation of powers, because the Constitution is clear. All legislative powers reside in Congress. It doesn't say if Congress doesn't act, the president can do whatever he or she wants.
Well, let's sort that out, because it's an important question. When it comes to immigration, I believe strongly that comprehensive immigration reform with a path to citizenship is not only good for people who are living under the shadow of deportation, it's good for our economy. So I think this is on the must-do list. And I hope that after this election, the Congress, which voted in a bipartisan way in 2010 and 2013 to actually take action, will come back and say, okay, let's do this together.
But if they don't,
well, if
what
they
gives
don't,
you the right to do executive action? I mean, that's Congress's decision.
No, there is a lot of precedent, legal precedent, about how presidents enforce the laws. Let's look at deportation. Whoever is president gets to determine what the priorities are. My priorities are deport criminals, violent criminals, as fast as we can. Deport anybody that we think even has a possible link to terrorism. But don't go rounding up hardworking mothers and fathers, taking them out of the factories or the hotels or the homes where they're working, making them disappear and leaving their children alone. That doesn't make any sense to me.
But if you're talking about executive action that's going to affect not a few people or 100 people, I understand prosecutorial discretion, but that's going to affect millions of people, aren't you changing the law? Aren't you writing the law?
No, because here's what I think. The Supreme Court has sent back for trial the challenges to the president's authority to take categories of people and remove the threat of deportation.
And as president, you would be able to name the justice who could break the tie.
Well, but first let's go and have the trial. That is true, that I hope that I will have that chance, because it's not just that, it's Citizens United. It's a lot of things that I think the current court got wrong, respectfully, for our democracy.
So you'd like to see all those
ourselves.
things change with your Supreme Court justice?
Well, whoever the next president is will get to appoint at least one, maybe more Supreme Court justices. And there are a lot of decisions that I approve of that this court has made, first and foremost, marriage equality. But there are decisions that I do think, when taken to their natural conclusion, have hurt our democracy, have undermined our economy.
But what about precedent?
The precedent is absolutely in line. And, I taught law. I'm a recovering lawyer. I know that precedent is something that you look to, but I also know that courts can take a look at precedent and determine that maybe they weren't right the first time.
You say you're the real change agent in this campaign, but I think it's fair to say that you're building on the Obama agenda. You're not rejecting it. 69% of Americans think that we're on the wrong track. We just found out that GDP growth in this last quarter was 1%. It's the slowest economic recovery since 1949. And you're offering tweaks, not a dramatic shift.
Well, I think what I'm offering are proven results. I think what I'm offering is that we can build on where we are. We've dug ourselves out. We're standing, but we're not yet running. I'm not happy with the status quo. I've said that repeatedly.
But you're offering more government programs,
well, but
more spending,
let's look,
more entitlements, more taxes, more tax penalties and credits.
Well, but let's unpack that. What I'm offering is the biggest job creation program since World War II, and I hope to be able.
But it's infrastructure. That's what Obama did.
But he didn't get to do enough. And he didn't get enough support from the Congress. It took years this time under President Obama to do something. We've got roads, bridges, tunnels, ports, airports, water systems, all failing, all being less than efficient in a time when we want to lift our economy and take on the rest of the world. And we've got some new challenges. We need a new electric grid.
But a lot of this is government. That's my point.
No, but it's going to be public-private sector. I mean, I'm looking for ways to start a national infrastructure bank. Seed it with federal dollars, but bring in private investors who want to make those commitments. I believe that America is ready for this, Chris, because we need to rebuild our infrastructure, which will create millions of jobs, and lay the foundation for many more millions to come.
One of the most dramatic moments in the Republican convention was when Pat Smith, the mother of Sean Smith, one of the people who died in Benghazi, stood up before the convention and blamed you for her son's death.
I blame Hillary Clinton. I blame Hillary Clinton personally for the death of my son. That's personally.
She and the father of Tyrone Woods both say that on the day that their sons' bodies were returned to the United States, that you came up to them and you said, it was all because of a video, not terrorism. Now, I know some of the other families disagree with this, and I know you deny it. My question is, why would they make that up?
Chris, my heart goes out to both of them. Losing a child under any circumstances, especially in this case, to State Department employees, extraordinary men, both of them, to CIA contractors, gave their lives protecting our country, our values. I understand the grief and the incredible sense of loss that can motivate that. As other members of families who lost loved ones have said, that's not what they heard. I don't hold any ill feeling for someone who, in that moment, may not fully recall everything that was or wasn't said.
One reason that people question your account, and this gets to the important question of trust, is because that day at Andrews, you never talked about terrorism. You talked about the video.
We've seen the heavy assault on our post in Benghazi that took the lives of those brave men. We've seen rage and violence directed at American embassies over an awful internet video that we had nothing to do with. No, that's not fair. If you go back and read everything that I said that day, I quoted people who talked about it being terrorism. I had already said it was terrorism. There was no doubt it was terrorism. I think there has been a confusion in the minds of some, and exploiting that confusion for the advantage of others. I have a quote
here where you say...
But look at everything I said. Because, and this goes back to all the investigations that were carried out. There were riots, there were protests, there were efforts to breach our embassies.
Yeah, but not in Benghazi. That wasn't what that was about.
No, but I'm just telling you, we were looking at the whole world. The whole world was aflame.
The emails.
Yes.
I want to ask you about just one aspect of them, and that's what you told the American people.
I did not email any classified material to anyone on my email. There is no classified materials. I am confident that I never sent nor received any information that was classified at the time. I had not sent classified material nor received anything marked classified.
After a long investigation, FBI Director James Comey said none of those things that you told the American public were true.
Chris, that's not what I heard Director Comey say, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity to, in my view, clarify. Director Comey said that my answers were truthful and what I've said is consistent with what I have told the American people. That there were decisions discussed and made to classify retroactively certain of the emails. I was communicating with over 300 people in my emailing. They certainly did not believe and had no reason to believe that what they were sending was classified. Now, in retrospect, different agencies come in and say, well, it should have been, but that's not what was happening in real time.
But in a congressional hearing on July 7th, Director Comey directly contradicted what you had told the public.
Secretary Clinton said there was nothing marked classified on her emails either sent or received. Was that true?
That's not true.
Secretary Clinton said I did not email any classified material to anyone on my email. There is no classified material. Was that true?
There was classified material emailed.
He directly contradicted what.
Well,
let me just he not only directly contradicted what you said, he also said in that hearing that you were extremely careless and negligent.
Well, Chris, I looked at the whole transcript of everything that was said, and what I believe is, number one, I made a mistake not using two different email addresses. I have said that, and I repeat it again today. It is certainly not anything that I ever would do again. I take classification seriously. I relied on and had every reason to rely on the judgments of the professionals with whom I worked. And so in retrospect, maybe some people are saying, well, among those 300 people, they made the wrong call. At the time, there was no reason, in my view, to doubt the professionalism and the determination by the people who work every single day on behalf of our country.
Let's talk about the Clinton Foundation and allegations of pay to play. The argument, the allegation that foreign companies and foreign countries either donated big money to the foundation or paid your husband big money for speeches in order to influence your work as Secretary of State. In the first 12 years after he left the White House, President Clinton made 13 speeches for which he got $500,000 or more. 11 of those 13 were while you were Secretary of State, and they were all paid for by foreign interests. Are we to believe that's just a coincidence?
Well, there's just no truth to any of these allegations.
I mean, it is true that they did make these speeches. They all were by foreign interests, and he was getting much bigger speaking fees.
He gave speeches as soon as he left the White House, all the way up until last year, and he spoke all over the world, as well as throughout America, to all kinds of groups. But let's get to the nut of your question. I'm really proud of the Clinton Foundation. I am proud of the work that it does. Thanks to the Clinton Foundation, 9 million more people in our world have access to HIV/AIDS drugs because they negotiated contracts that made them affordable. And there is absolutely no connection between anything that I did as Secretary of State and the Clinton Foundation. So people can say that, but I'm proud of our philanthropic work, our personal family philanthropic work, the work of the Clinton Foundation. I'd like to see Donald Trump's tax returns to find out how much philanthropy he's ever done.
In your acceptance speech, you addressed people's continuing doubts about you.
I get it, that some people just don't know what to make of me.
Forgive me, Secretary Clinton, but the Americans know what they think of you. 2/3 of them don't trust you.
Well, here's what I know, Chris. I have work to do to make sure people know what I have done and what I will do. That's part of what this convention was about. I feel very comfortable that the more people learn about what I've actually done, not the caricature, but the real deal, as my husband said in his remarks, they will understand why I was elected twice to the United States Senate, in the second time with a 67% vote, why my former opponent, President-elect Obama, trusted me to be Secretary of State. Every time I run for an office, though, oh my goodness, all of these caricatures come out of nowhere, and people begin to undermine me, because when I left office as Secretary of State, 66% of Americans approved of what I did.
You don't think there's any legitimate reason people would have doubts about your, to use the phrase in the polls, honesty and trustworthiness?
Well, I think that it's fair for Americans to have questions. I hope you'll ask Donald Trump why he is so untrusted by the American people.
I have.
I have a long record of public service that I can point to that's actually produced results for people. So when I talk about what I want to do in public life, what I want to do as president, people can go back and say, hey, you know what? She said she was going to get health care for America's children. She did. 8 million kids now have health care, and their families don't have to worry about losing their house to take care of their sick kid. I am proud of my record of public service and the results that I've gotten to help people have better lives.
It has been 96 years since women got the right to vote. A couple of questions. Has it emotionally fully sunk in yet, the barrier you broke, one more barrier to Americans' full participation in the process? And how emotional was Thursday night for you?
It was way over the top emotional. My biggest concern going out there to make that speech Thursday night was whether or not I could control my emotions.
You say whether you could control your emotions. What was your concern?
That I would start crying. I mean, that was my big concern. Also, watching my daughter and having her waiting on stage when I came out, I was pretty concerned about whether I'd make it through the speech.
You talked a lot in the convention about your mom.
Yes.
And about her hard childhood and about her resilience and the lessons she taught you. I wonder, in these last few days, have you been thinking of her, and what do you imagine she's thinking of you?
Oh, Chris, I've thought about her. Well, I think about her every day, and particularly during the convention, I thought a lot about her. She and my daughter were so close, and I thought a lot about her when I walked out onto that stage to deliver that address. And actually, that was the part of the speech that concerned me the most. Anytime I talk about my mom, I get, very overcome. She wouldn't like what she saw at the Republican convention, where, just the outrageous things that were said, and the kind of normalization of really offensive rhetoric in our politics. She wouldn't have liked any of that. She was a big Fox viewer, I will tell you. And
really?
Yes, she was. And
Why didn't you take that from her?
Well, I once said to her, because she would get upset, I'll be honest with you. She would get upset when some of the people you had on would say these terrible things about me. And that was when I was a senator running for president and for the first 2 years of being Secretary of State. And I would say, well, Mom, if it upsets you so much, why do you keep watching? And she said, well, I like some of the people, and I have to know what the other ones are saying so I can understand and be against it. So I think she had a very strategic reason for watching. She said to me one time, Hillary, I don't understand. You were such a wonderful child to raise, and you never gave me a minute's trouble or worry. Then you become an adult, and you get into politics, and I just worry all the time. So she would worry. But she would be encouraging, and she would say what she said to me when I was 4 years old, in the face of a bully, because honestly, I think that describes my opponent. I feel I have to get out there, go back out there, stand up to him, not just on my own behalf, because I can take care of myself, but on behalf of all these other people who he has so mistreated in this campaign.
Secretary Clinton, thank you. Thanks for talking with us.
Thank you, Chris.
Safe travels.
Thanks a lot. Take care.